going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment. Unbelievable! This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
And it is a great day to be alive on Westwood One Sports. I don't care what you say about it being the dog days of summer and not a lot going on. There was a lot going on. Last night, second round of the NBA draft, a couple more deals get done, trades happen, World Cup continues. The NHL not one to let the NBA totally steal the spotlight when it comes to the summertime offseason. A few moves made there as well. We've got teams finding new depths of suctitude, not a word, but I just made it one in baseball. Oh yeah, there's plenty going on. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos here on Westwood One Sports. It is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Wherever you may be, we are right there with you. Westwood One Sports app is the best way to take us with you. Also, inside that Odyssey app, AUD, ACY, and live across North America on Sirius XM Channel 375. We've got a lot of reaction to what's gone on in the NBA over the last couple of days, in particular the 2 days of the draft and all those deals that I mentioned that went on around the draft, particularly in Memphis, where some things have been happening. John Martin of the Field of 68 going to join us a little more than 30 minutes from now. Also, John on 92.9 ESPN in Memphis and a columnist for the Daily Memphian. So what's he think of what the Grizzlies have been up to? Fran Fraschilla, exactly 1 hour from now, ESPN college basketball analyst. You saw how many Big 12 players went in the first round of the NBA draft the other night. Fran called a ton of Big 12 games and just knows his college basketball better than just about anybody else. He will join us, as I mentioned, at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific to break it all down. And for an LA perspective on Austin Reeves, LeBron James, whatever else may shake out with the Lakers for that matter, Doug McCain of the new 97.1 The Fan in LA is going to join us later in the show as well. The NFL offseason, I mean, we're firmly in that sort of sleepy time period between mini camps and training camps. Doesn't mean there wasn't news, and that one position group in particular hasn't been the focus the last couple of days. Some ridiculous NFL news broke overnight that we'll get into a little bit later as well. A lot to fire up this morning. You want to be a part of the conversation, go to YouTube, youtube.com/@thekostos, THEKOSTOS. Nick off, but you can still jump into the chat right there live on the YouTube stream and watch the show as well. And, of course, the phone line's always open at 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. A lot to get to, as I mentioned, so let's do it with the 5 biggest stories of the day right off the top. I call it the High Five.
5.
There's one push forward down the right side for Pepe to chase. Pulisic is in the middle. Pepe rolls it in. It's Christian Pulisic round the keeper. It's Pulisic with a goal. What a start for Christian Pulisic. A goal and an assist in the first 20 minutes. And the United States lead by 2-0.
That was from a friendly back in May. The Team USA played against Senegal. Christian Pulisic doing Christian Pulisic type things, which he hasn't been able to do for a little bit now because of a calf injury sustained in Team USA's opener against Paraguay. He needs to be back tonight. And look, I get what you're probably thinking if you've been paying attention to the World Cup, as everyone in the world has been doing aside from our board op Kenny Henderson. If you've been paying attention to the World Cup, you know that this match tonight against Turkey means nothing for Team USA. They have won their group, and they more than likely know who they're going to face in exactly 1 week, July 1st, in their first knockout round matchup, the round of 32. They know it's probably going to be Bosnia. And look, I am not some well-versed football expert. I prefer my football with shoulder pads and large humans pummeling each other. Sorry, America. But I did know enough to do a little reading about the squad from Bosnia that the U.S. might face in the next round. I want to say it's greater than a 90% chance the U.S. will play Bosnia next week in their first knockout round match. And the first thing you read about that Bosnia squad in every single breakdown, they're physical. Yup, they're going to come after you. They're going to take fouls, hard fouls in a lot of cases. And so my reasoning, despite the fact that for the last week and a half I've said, no, let Pulisic sit, let him get ready for the knockout round, my reasoning has changed now knowing who the opponent is and knowing that they're going to come after you. I want Christian Pulisic to be out there on the pitch. See how I did that, soccer fans? I tried to align myself with you by using the word pitch instead of field. I'm doing my best, man. Get Christian Pulisic back out on the pitch against Turkey tonight for at least, I don't know, the first half. And just let him loosen up and get heated back up, acclimated to the speed of the game, and ready for when the Bosnian squad next week is going to be taking ruthless slide tackles at that injured calf. Let him get back up to speed tonight, back up to game speed. Again, it doesn't have to be more than a half. Just let him get out there and feel it so that he's ready next week and going through the knockout rounds. Slightest little twinge or tweak of the calf, you're out. We're going to be watching. But I'd like to see Pulisic out there tonight against Turkey, even if the match means absolutely nothing. Next.
4.
Tuck dropped it back. Tage Thompson, now Rasmus Dahlin, the Buffalo captain, out in front, and they score! Alex Tuck makes it 1-0 Buffalo.
Sean McDonough on ESPN during the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs a couple months ago. That was Alex Tuck scoring the goal to open the scoring in Buffalo's Game 6 win over Boston in the first round this spring. Alex Tuck just got paid $10.5 million a year for 8 years in a sign and trade with the Washington Capitals. And look, if you're not a hockey fan, you didn't know who Alex Tuck was in the first place, most likely. If you're a peripheral hockey fan, like you're a sports fan and you know when the playoffs come around, it's really time to start watching, you might recognize the name Alex Tuck. Was a role player on those Golden Knights teams when he first came into the league not too long ago that won a Stanley Cup. Alex Tuck is 30 years old, and yes, he scored 30 goals in 3 of the past 4 seasons. So I'm not trying to make it out like he isn't a very good player. Same could be said, I guess, to an extent, of Darren Radish, who was traded last week and signed an 8-year, $64 million deal, I believe it was, averaging 8 a year. Another 30-year-old guy, but Radish should never scored more than, I don't think, 6 goals in a season before this year when he scored 22. And there have been other moves made. The Sabres have been at the top of the list. They dealt a young defenseman, Bowen Byram. He's also going to get paid. There was a lot to go back in that deal. Brady Tkachuk dealt to Florida, obviously. The NHL trying not to take a backseat to the NBA offseason. I say all this to tell you that if you're a hockey fan, are you like me just kind of looking around right now going, what the hell's going on? I get that the salary cap is taking a big leap for the NHL this offseason. I get that it's a very shallow free agent class, okay? And so teams are making trades, signing trades, getting creative with the deals so they can go out and address the needs on their roster. But, and I mean this as no disrespect, which means I can basically say whatever I want now. I said no disrespect. Thank you, Ricky Bobby. I say this with no disrespect. All due respect to guys like Alex Tuck and Darren Radish. But what the hell? This is like when my wife says she's going to go shopping, right? And she leaves the house and she's just got a few things to pick up. and TJ Maxx just happens to be right next door to the grocery store, and she comes home with like $250 in candles and dish towels and random decorations for the house. That's not what you went out. You went out for important things that we needed, and you saw the discount stuff next to it, and you went, oh, well, I got to buy something. Got to use that cap space. Y'all got any Alex Tucks and Darren Radishes? I don't understand it, the NHL offseason so far. And this is coming from someone who's a hockey fan, who's grown up a hockey fan and looks forward to free agency opening on July 1st every year. But there's one crown jewel, most likely, in this NHL offseason, and it's Jason Robertson, assuming he can't get a deal done with the Dallas Stars. That's the guy you give 8 years and $120 million to, or whatever the Alex Tuck deal came to. Way too much. That's the guy you go after. That's the guy you give up multiple first-round draft picks for. Again, all due respect, which means I can say anything. Not Alex Tuck and Darren Radish. What? Next.
3.
Lawrence looking for Strange to the end zone. Diving catch. Touchdown Jacksonville. Second touchdown catch of the season for Brenton Strange, and the Jaguars back on top.
That was Kevin Kugler on Fox, Week 16. Brenton Strange with a touchdown catch in Denver against the Broncos. Brenton Strange got paid yesterday as well. Second big tight end contract this week after the Falcons re-upped Kyle Pitts earlier in the week. That means 2 of the top 5 tight end contracts based on average value have been signed in the last few days in the NFL. Position group that's more valuable than it's ever been before. Brenton Strange, though. Notice that was a Week 16 game and his second touchdown catch of the year. Okay. Again, he's a Penn State guy, so I'm not going to go after him too hard. But Brenton Strange? I know tight ends are more valuable than ever. I know they're very important. There are teams that value the tight end like never before. Tight end U going on this week. Taylor Swift is singing songs for him. Mac Jones is dancing like a drunk uncle who just had his first scotch and soda at a wedding. That's how uncles dance. See, I know this because I'm a 40-year-old white dude, and this is how we dance after a drink. See? No rhythm whatsoever. Tight ends are valuable, but you better get it right if you're going to take swings on them. A little bit later, I want to power rank the best NFL tight end groups. We'll do that right around 11 Eastern here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos here on You Better You Bet, counting down the 5 biggest stories of the day. Number 2.
Cunningham using a screen as well. Finds Stewart. Stewart spins. Stewart dunks.
Isaiah Stewart is now a Memphis Grizzly. And you go, okay, great, backup center to Memphis. He'll back up Zach Edey. He'll score 8 to 12 points a night. That's the Isaiah Stewart. Why are you talking about this at number 2 on the countdown of the 5 biggest stories today? Because it's more about what the Pistons did. And we'll talk to John Martin in Memphis in about 25 minutes about what Memphis is doing. But what Detroit is doing is clearing cap space. Detroit is setting up for a move. They couldn't get their hands on Austin Reeves, and we'll get to that in a second as the Lakers re-upped him. So now they're setting up for something, because the last thing the Pistons want is for this to be another season where they have a great record, number 1 seed, and don't do enough with it. Don't even get to the conference finals. Come on, guys. What are we doing? So now they're going to set it up. They're going to go out and get someone to score alongside Cade Cunningham. Who's it going to be? Don't know. But that's the story to pay attention to. You saw the Isaiah Stewart to Memphis deal last night. You went, oh, okay, big whoop. Second day draft deal incoming when there's like 6,000 trades made. It matters, especially as far as the Pistons cap number goes. We'll get into that a little bit later. Fran Fraschilla will join us at the top of the hour, 45 minutes from now. Finally, number 1.
Reeves jumping in to J-Roll. Bounced off him and 7-0 Laker run.
Oh, the great Kevin Harlan on Prime. Austin Reeves making plays in the playoffs. They didn't make enough of them, but Austin Reeves, 4 years, $185 million. The initial reaction to this from Lakers fans, I would think, is, does this mean they won't have the space to eventually acquiesce to LeBron James's demands / requests? We're going to talk to Doug McCain of 97.1 The Fan in LA about this in a little more than an hour, but I don't think it has any effect on LeBron whatsoever. I don't. I think if the Lakers are dead set on not bringing LeBron back, then they don't need to provide excuses for that. And if they end up bringing LeBron back into the fold for one more year, they still have the cap space to do it at the number that would make LeBron happy and bring him back for one more year. If you're a Lakers fan, you take solace, not solace, like this is a disappointing bit of news, Austin Reeves re-signing for another 4 years, but you instead focus on the fact that your backcourt is built out. It's Luka and it's Reeves. And now, speaking of teams looking to push another domino over on the NBA offseason, what's next for LA? How do they address the big man issue? Sorry, DeAndre Ayton. All due respect. Again, I can say whatever I want because I said all due respect. You're not the guy. So what does it look like for the Lakers in that search for the big man? Again, Doug McCain will join us in a little more than an hour here on Westwood One Sports to give us the Los Angeles perspective on that. But coming up, one young up-and-coming NBA team may be looking to move on from their biggest name. And it could be the first shoe to drop on another move because that's what season we're in the NBA. You're making one move to knock over another domino and another domino and another domino. Or is it this team just trying to get out from underneath a tumultuous personality while building their roster up to take the next step? I'll tell you exactly who we're talking about next here on Westwood One Sports.
LaMelo relocates. Oh my goodness! Living LaMelo Loco!
Welcome back to You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Eric Collins on FanDuel Charlotte. LaMelo Ball. Wait, is it actually happening now? This segment sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com. It's happening. I was going to talk about how they were shopping the Hornets LaMelo Ball here, and bang, it happens. We make the news happen here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet. Breaking news. Sources telling ESPN the Charlotte Hornets are trading star guard LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Oh, my. Oh, LaMelo and Anthony Edwards together. This either ends in a trip to the conference finals or a fight. LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the Timberwolves for Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round swaps in 28, 29, and 30, and 3 second-round picks in 29, 32, and 33. So, again, the breaking news here on Westwood One Sports. I swear, had no idea it was going to happen right at this moment, but we were planning on talking about LaMelo and the Hornets anyway. The Hornets are trading LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the T-Wolves for Naz Reid and a boatload of picks and swaps. Okay. I got to take a step back and decide how we're going to analyze this. First, I'm going to start from the Hornets' point of view here, okay? I'm going to start from Charlotte's point of view. And I have to believe that this is as much about not wanting to deal with LaMelo and his crap, which has not yet reached astronomical levels. And if you're going to go deep in the playoffs, is worth trading for. Like, hey, you know what? We'll put up with LaMelo being LaMelo as long as we know he's at the core of us, not just being a play-in team, but being a legit playoff threat, right? You'd be willing to do that. But clearly, Charlotte looked at it and said, well, but if we're still kind of right there on the borderline of the play-in, maybe we take a step forward and we're a legitimate playoff threat, we're not willing to put up with LaMelo, then you make this move. And that's exactly what's happening. So I got to be honest. I don't hate this move for Charlotte at all, because while they have started their ascendancy, I think, I don't know how far they were going to get with LaMelo at the heart of this thing. And so with all the resources they get back, and let me just run down the list again. It is a 2033 unprotected first-round pick. So down the line. And the first-round pick swaps are still a couple years out. 28, 29, and 30. And the 3 second-round picks. 29, 32, and 33. None of these are immediate resources for the Hornets, according to ESPN's reporting of the deal. The most immediate resource, obviously, is, well, Naz Reid. That's another reason I like this for the Hornets. I like this deal for the Hornets. I got to be honest, not a huge fan of it for the T-Wolves. The Hornets didn't need LaMelo Ball. Look at everything else they've pieced together there. Knipple, Brandon Miller, Kobe White, he said with a question mark, Miles Bridges. I like what they've got in Charlotte here. And now to not have to, like I said, put up with LaMelo. I don't like this for the T-Wolves. I don't. This is not going, like I said, this is going to end one of two ways. It's going to end in a trip to the conference finals or a fight. Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball coexisting, not just in the same locker room, in the same backcourt. I want to be in that huddle when we're drawing up the final shot of the game. So my immediate reaction to this, I like it for Charlotte. I have many fears and reservations about this if I'm a T-Wolves fan. The pair together have the potential to be really good, Edwards and Ball. Like I said, it's also got the potential to totally blow up in Minnesota's face. Kenny, you're working on like 2.5 hours of sleep, which might be the best version of Kenny Henderson I know. So I want you to chime in here real quick on LaMelo to Minnesota, because I don't think there's any middle ground here. This ends spectacularly one way or another, either in a deep playoff run or by the end of the year, they're just wailing away on each other in the locker room, just fists up, ready to go.
Yeah, I agree. This could go very poorly, but I will say on the surface, as a big Anthony Edwards fan, him and LaMelo together, I think, are the best backcourt in the NBA, or at least could be. I think that might be a stretch. I think you look at like Luka and Austin Reeves. Most people would probably take Luka and Austin Reeves over those two, but still, I think LaMelo still has a lot. Like, neither of these guys have played with a player as good as one another, so we'll see how this goes. But as a huge Anthony Edwards fan, I'm excited about it because I just think all he really needed was a real point guard, because he's been the one with the ball in his hands, basically asked to create at all times, and he's really only a scorer. He's not a great passer, so you add a good passer into the mix like LaMelo, a real point guard. LaMelo's going to have to take a step back from taking as many shots as he did in Charlotte, but I still think that they have the potential to be the best backcourt in the NBA, and I think that's worth a lot, and it's just going to come down to the rest of the team and how they fill it out. But I think they have I typed it in the chat, their top 7 is pretty good. It matches up with the teams in the West.
I don't like losing Naz Reid, though, especially deep in the Western Conference playoffs. If you get to that point, his ability to bang away down low defensively, like that was a big part of what they were able to do. Especially you run into foul trouble with Gobert. If that happens, you're able to pivot to Naz. I think you're right, though. This is all dependent, and we're gonna move back into a Grizzlies-centered conversation here in just a couple of minutes. So a lot happening in the last couple of days around the NBA. But this in Minnesota is all going to come down to whether LaMelo can check his ego at the door and take a step back. If he doesn't, then it's going to blow up spectacularly, and Anthony Edwards will 1 out in a year. And that's the way it'll go. So there's your breaking news. Just when we were getting ready to talk about LaMelo anyway, the trade coming in from ESPN, sources telling them LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the T-Wolves for Naz Reid and an unprotected first-round pick in 2033, plus some first-round pick swaps a couple years down the line and some second-round picks a couple years down the line as well. We'll get reaction from Fran Fischilla at the top of the hour, ESPN college basketball analyst, and also things happening in Memphis. All of these teams that might see themselves as making a leap from in the basement to maybe play-in conversation, the teams that look at themselves from being play-in conversation to legitimate playoff contenders. Legitimate playoff contenders like Minnesota trying to take the next step to becoming title contenders. Everybody's trying to make that move over the last couple of days. We'll talk to John Martin of the Field of 68, his thoughts on the NBA draft, all the moves made, and some Grizzlies-specific questions as well, as John is in Memphis. That's next right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet. Fran Fraschilla at the top of the hour. Want to get his immediate reaction to the LaMelo Ball trade. Short of including a draft pick that won't come for a first-round draft pick that won't come for another 7 years. It's basically LaMelo Ball for Naz Reid and a whole bunch of pick swaps and second-round picks, but all of them years into the future. We'll talk to Fran at the top of the hour. Also, Doug McCain of 97.1 The Fan in L.A. coming up in about 45 minutes as well for reaction to the Austin Reeves signing and what else is on tap for the Lakers this offseason. You would hope, if you're a Lakers fan anyway, it includes a big man. We will talk World Cup as well. Why I think Christian Pulisic has to see some time tonight in an otherwise meaningless match against Turkey. 10 Eastern tonight. The U.S. plays their final group stage match. It is time for the world's top stars to go head-to-head on the pitch. So grab today's Odds Boost token inside your BetMGM app and join the excitement. Make your World's Game moment. Activate your token for any World's Game bet, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. Download the BetMGM app today, and please gamble responsibly. Before all the LaMelo stuff went down 15 minutes ago, we were preparing to talk about some of the teams that may be in the conversation for getting themselves into the NBA playoffs in a year after not going this season. Maybe because of the benefit of the moves they've made so far over the last couple of days. Could we consider the Memphis Grizzlies amongst that bunch? I don't know. Let's talk to a friend of mine and a man who definitely has his thoughts on it. Catch him every day on 92.9 ESPN in Memphis inside your Odyssey app. Also a part of the Field of 68 and a columnist at the Daily Memphian, my good friend John Martin. Good morning, John. How are you?
Well. How we doing, brother? Good to hear from you.
Good to see your face. Well, hear your voice. They put your face up on the screen so I could see it too, so it still feels like I'm talking to you. Yeah. Let's talk. Before we get into what the Grizzlies did and some of the bigger picks of the draft over the last couple of days and your reaction to those, just instant reaction to the LaMelo Ball news. Dealt to the Minnesota Timberwolves for a first-round pick in 2033, an unprotected 2033 first-round pick, but more importantly, Naz Reid and a bunch of pick swaps in there as well. Can it work with LaMelo and Ant in the same backcourt?
My first pass at this deal is that I don't really like it because I don't really like LaMelo as a player. I mean, he's just unserious to me, and so you're trying to make a move because you have to because you don't have a point guard and DiVincenzo's out for the year, and so you can't go into a year with Dosunmu or Mike Conley as your starting point guard, but for me, like knowing how much Minnesota loves Naz Reid and how much of a fan favorite he is up there, like to have to send him out to bring back LaMelo Ball, like my guess is this is not a popular move at all in Minnesota. I don't think it really makes them better. I don't think LaMelo fits with what they do with their identity. Like when you think about Minnesota, as limited as they may be, like they all kind of do the same thing. They all are super tough. They all are able to defend multiple positions, and they take it seriously. And, like, none of those things applies to LaMelo. He's the guy that's going to, like, hezzy dribble, at the top of the key and put up a 30-footer, and it might go in, and you'll get some oohs and ahs. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like, it kind of just feels like they're running it back with, like, a D'Angelo Russell type, I don't really think it makes them better. They have to do something, and I get it, but I don't think it's going to materially improve them, if at all. And I don't think the fans are going to like this move because it required sending out Naz Reid and a future first.
Yeah, I mean, the first is far enough out in the future that who knows what your team looks like in 7 years, but still, I think the Naz Reid part of that is the greater point here. And like you pointed out, the defense that you lose, especially you've got Rudy Gobert, but when Rudy gets in foul trouble or you're going up against the San Antonio or Oklahoma City in the Western Conference, you need two of those guys, and they've only got one now. So, like you, not immediately a huge fan of this for Timberwolves fans. Let me pivot to your Grizz. It is the summer of trying to get out from under Ja Morant. And also the summer of trying to build this roster out in a way that can compete sooner rather than later, right? Like they've got the front court, they've got the rim protection now by adding Isaiah Stewart. You've got a complement to Zach Edey or a backup to Zach Edey when he's healthy. They've got the size now, John, up front. How comfortable are they, do you think, with the roster in totality? What other dominoes need to fall into place this summer?
Well, I mean, they got to figure out what the hell they're doing with Ja Morant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's priority number one. And maybe this LaMelo deal sort of sets a market a little bit for that. I mean, they've obviously had a hellacious time getting Ja off the roster, which unequivocally they want to do. They wanted to do it in January when they announced that they were listening to trade offers. They wanted to do it at the trade deadline. Their logic was simply, hey, maybe we let some of these contenders go through a playoff series, see what they're missing, maybe see a two-time All-Star on our roster and say he's worth a first, or if it's not a first, just something to where we don't have to attach a pick to get him off. So they've been trying to get rid of him, for 5-6 months now, but they can't. And so I think they're going to have to figure out, is it worth us attaching a future pick? Because the truth is, with the new lottery system, first round picks become, depending on, they could become more or less valuable depending on where they are. Like a team that you may think will be middling. Well, in the old system, that might have meant I don't want that first. Well, now it means you do. So I don't know what the Grizzlies, outlook on that is. Do they value their picks more now? Do they value them less? I don't know. But I don't know how tenable it is to, expect Ja Morant to be on this roster next year, given everything that's gone on between him and the franchise. So I think, the first order of business is just figuring out who will trade for Ja Morant. There's got to be somebody out there that will take a shot on the guy. But that's, until anything else happens, I think that's what they have to figure out.
John Martin with us from Memphis, 92.9 ESPN in Memphis, inside your Odyssey app, columnist for the Daily Memphian, also a contributor to the Field of 68. So I don't know a person who I consider myself friends with that watches more college basketball than this man every single year. Let me ask you your initial reactions to the top of the draft on Tuesday night, John. Debanza to Washington, Peterson to Utah, and how it shook out from there. Obviously, I know you're excited about Boozer.
Yeah, Boozer is sort of my favorite player and favorite fit in the draft. I mean, if there's a franchise in the NBA that needs less off-court drama, less BS, it is the Grizzlies. And so I think he fits into that mold. I mean, you're talking about a winning pedigree, a professional. I think he raises the floor. Is he going to be an 8-time All-Star? Probably not. But you look at the history of top 3 picks. I mean, most of those are hits. And I would also say, a freshman that goes on to win the John Wooden Award in college basketball, he's never been a bad NBA player. Like, in fact, he's only been great. If you're a freshman, you win that award, which is Player of the Year, and you go to the NBA, which all of them do, you're talking about Kevin Durant, you're talking about Anthony Davis, you're talking about Cooper Flagg, you're talking about Zion Williamson. And I know I'm missing a guy, but every single freshman that has won that award has gone on to be a good to great NBA player. So I think history is on the side here of Cam Boozer. Obviously, Darren Peterson is going to fit in great for Utah. I mean, they need a guy like him with his scoring punch in that backcourt. I know he had the inconsistency and the BS with the injury, and I'm sure they did their due diligence there in Utah and figured out what that was really about, and obviously determined that it's nothing to worry about long term. Guy shot 38% on high volume on a not great Kansas team. Like, they didn't have a bunch of great players. It was a down Kansas team. So I think he's going to be a great NBA player. AJ's raw, but, the ability is there, the athleticism. Who can't get excited about that in Washington, what they're trying to do? Most excitement they've had in a long, long time. So, yeah, I mean, I think the top three, I think all three of those guys are going to go on to have illustrious, good NBA careers. I'm less convinced about Caleb Wilson. I think there is a big drop-off between 3 and 4 because Caleb Wilson can't shoot. He can't shoot, and he didn't shoot. These are things that would disturb me at the NBA level because if you can't shoot, you can't play. That's the game today. So that would be what I would be worried about is Caleb Wilson in Chicago and just how impactful he can be, over the course of a 10-year career.
John, before I let you run, I want to circle back around to the Grizzlies specifically. And between Stewart, Edey, and Boozer now, this is, and it's funny, it ties back to what we were just talking about with the T-Wolves giving up Naz Reid in the LaMelo Ball deal. The Western Conference especially, but across the NBA, the Western Conference especially, though, if you do not have a front line that can all be on the floor together and compete, ultimately when it comes down to trying to get through San Antonio or Oklahoma City, you're not going to be able to do much of anything. Is that a theme that you think we're going to see continue to get built out, not just this offseason, but over the next year or two, as people try to find some sort of way to compete against the two big boys in the West?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, you saw that even with the Spurs, right? The Spurs have Wemby, who everybody's trying to counter, and they said, listen, when Wemby wasn't on the floor, we got absolutely destroyed. So we had to go draft 2 centers, one of them being Jaden Quaintance. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's just like even though the Spurs lost that series, everybody knows that, they had a very live shot to win that series, and they were leading for the majority of that series, and that was simply a matter of being young and inexperienced at that level. They know the Spurs are coming, so everything's going to be a Wemby counter. Everything's going to be about being big and being, having shot blocking ability and rim protection inside. Now, there's only one Wemby, so you can chase it. But yeah, I mean, I do think the NBA is definitely, it's going to morph into whatever the meta is, and right now the meta is Victor Wembanyama. And how can you counter that? We saw, there are some ways you can rough him up. You can be physical. So I think you'll see more physical bigs, become a thing. Like the Grizzlies just traded for Isaiah Stewart yesterday. I think guys like that, are going to be more, more valuable around the league, who are not afraid to stick their nose in. So yeah, I think that's what you're going to see in terms of that arms race. It's just getting more physical and as big as you possibly can to counter, the obvious mismatch nightmare that is Wemby.
John, I'm going to let you run. Congrats on the new edition. I know it's been a couple of months, but it was great to hear your voice again. Yeah. Keep working hard, my brother, and we will check you out all over the place because now you got as many kids as
Likewise,
jobs. You finally evened up.
That's right, my man. Thank you, dog.
See ya. John Martin from 92.9 ESPN in Memphis. Catch him every day inside the Odyssey app. Also, contributor to the Field of 68 and a columnist for the Daily Memphian. I do think that is a really important part of what you would want to see your team doing. If you were an NBA fan, I would want to see my team putting together a strong front line to protect the rim and rebound and, as John put it there, rough dudes up occasionally. Especially if you're in the Western Conference, but across the league now. I mean, you're coming off a year where the championship went to a team that had Karl Anthony Towns, admittedly not a massively physical big, but a guy who can handle that position, and Mitchell Robinson. Clank, he just put another free throw off the front of the rim, but he can defend. And that was the key to beating Victor Wembanyama. That has to be the formula going forward. You have to have not just one big man, which the Grizzlies had in Zach Edey. You can't just have two big men. All right, we'll trade for Isaiah Stewart. We've got a pair that's better than just one. but you've really got to build out the entire front line. Okay, let's draft Cam Boozer. And so I like what the Grizzlies have done so far. I'm not willing to say they're in the play-in next year, or certainly not the playoffs, but it's a step in the right direction, as opposed to Minnesota dealing Naz Reid for LaMelo Ball. We get Fran Fraschilla's reaction to that deal that just went down about 30 minutes ago. That's next right here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here? No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment.
Unbelievable!
This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Coming up in just a moment, Big 12 dominated the first round of the NBA draft, and I don't know if anybody called more Big 12 games this past year than Fran Fraschilla from ESPN. We'll ask him his reaction to the NBA draft now that it's all done and wrapped, especially those picks near the top of the first round. Doug McCain coming up in 20 minutes from the new 97.1 The Fan in LA to talk about the Lakers re-upping with Austin Reeves a little bit later in the show. Just a ridiculous story for a team that is supposed to have a handle on these kind of things. We'll get into it at the top of the hour when we'll also power rank the best NFL tight end groups, because it's been all about the tight ends this week. An extension for Brenton Strange, an extension for Kyle Pitts, tight end U going on in Nashville, all of that on the way. Plus, I'll tell you exactly why I think Christian Pulisic, despite tonight's match meaning nothing for the U.S. men's national team at the World Cup, should play tonight. We'll get into all of it. A lot going on. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos here on You Better You Bet. It is Westwood One Sports, live across North America on Sirius XM channel 375. As mentioned, this man probably called more Big 12 games this year than anybody else. I didn't keep track of that, but we're going to just roll with it. The great Fran Fraschilla joins us here on Westwood One Sports. Good morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. You are probably correct. I don't add them up, but that's probably true. And I would have loved to have talked a little bit more about those Big 12 guys over the last 3 days, but my expertise on this particular draft is the international guys. And but I knew the draft cold, and certainly happy for so many of my friends in the Big 12 and their parents who got a chance to get drafted the last 2 days.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to picking your brain about a lot of these picks that were made over the last couple of days. I did want to get just your immediate reaction first, though, Fran, to the LaMelo Ball deal. Yeah. Traded to Minnesota, Naz Reid, and an unprotected first-round pick in 2033, as well as some other second-round picks and pick swaps well off into the future go back to Charlotte as well. Just your initial thoughts on LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards in the same backcourt.
Well, I was sitting next to Shams Charania last night as he was, grinding away, trying to get the particulars. And he did tell us at the end of the night, and I think he reported that he felt that in the next 24 hours, a deal would be done. He was absolutely correct. Obviously, you'd expect that from Shams. And, LaMelo had a really good year this year playing on a Charlotte Hornet team that made some improvement. I mean, they were terrific towards the end of the year. And it's a little surprising because of that, but you don't know the internal dynamics. You just drafted a youngster, Christian Anderson, in the first round who, would probably now get a chance to play even more. Naz Reid has not been a starter in Minnesota because of Julius Randle. Randle's gone. Now Naz Reid is gone. To your point, that becomes an excellent backcourt. In a game, Chris, in a typical NBA game, there's 100 possessions. And when you ask somebody like Anthony Edwards to handle, the majority of the load, that can really wear on you. This is two co-pilots now piloting a 747 across the Atlantic. When one guy needs a little bit of break, you got the other guy now to pick up the slack, and vice versa. So, in that sense, I trust Tim Connolly. He does an excellent job, and it's probably a trade that both teams feel will help them.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I like that analogy. You got one guy who needs to step out for a second. The other one can pilot the thing for a while. I'm curious to see how they work together as well. LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards going forward from Minnesota. Let's pivot back to the draft, though, Fran. And as mentioned, Big 12 dominated the first round on Tuesday night. So let's talk about A.J. DeBonsa to the Wizards, Darren Peterson to the Jazz. Which one of these guys you think has more of an immediate impact? Maybe that's more about the team around them, but just how much of an immediate impact can each of these guys have?
both will have an immediate impact, Chris, honestly. And this is, last year we would have said that no matter what team was drafting number one, if they had 4 power forwards, they were still taking Cooper Flagg. Obviously he was far and away the best player in that draft. This was a little different. The top 3 and even the top 4 all had their strengths. Any one of them can be the best player in this draft in 5 years. And by the way, any one of the guys taken in the first round could be the best player, a la Steph Curry at 7, Jalen Brunson even in the second round. So to answer your question, I think I think both teams got what they wanted. Washington, Sarr is a rising star, power forward. Hopefully Anthony Davis plays 55, 60 games. They've got a plethora of young guards and wings, and you plug AJ in. In Utah, you've got a terrific front line already, assuming they re-sign Walker Kessler, but you already have Ace Bailey, at a 2-3. You have Lauri Markkanen, who's one of the most underrated players in the league. People don't know how good he is. And then Jaren Jackson Jr. And so Darren Peterson, fits nicely in with Keontae George. And so I think to answer your question, these picks each fit the team that drafted them.
Fran Fraschilla of ESPN with us talking NBA draft now that it's done and wrapped here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet. One of the guys I was most interested in seeing where he ended up going, Fran, coming into this draft, not a Big 12 guy, but Darius Acuff Jr. from Arkansas. Just a guy who's incredibly dynamic with the ball in his hands. How much can he impact things right out of the gate for Sacramento, a team that's really always in fits and starts, feels like it's trying to rebuild?
Yeah, and as you probably know, Chris, there was a family connection in Sacramento. Scott Perry, who runs the organization from a basketball standpoint, coached Darius' dad at Eastern Kentucky. They have that Detroit connection as well. But Darius Acuff could be the best player in this draft. He really could. As I said, you never know from year to year. Now, I understand why L.A. did not take him. They already have a small guard in Darius Garland, who's an all-star pretty much and plays like it. And so they probably were concerned. The interesting thing is going to be if Mikal Brown turns out to be really, really good, we have no issue here. But if it's Darius Acuff at 7, then there'll be some consternation here in Brooklyn, where I am, currently as I get ready to leave after the draft. So Darius is, I love him. He had an incredible year. He's Dame Lillard reincarnated. He wears the same chip on his shoulder out of Detroit that a kid from Oakland like Dame Lillard had coming into the league. So tremendous. I love him, and he can score. He's a great passer. That wasn't highlighted much by the draft experts coming in. And he's going to fit right away. He's going to have the ball in his hands, and I have a feeling he's going to be a really, really good NBA player.
With so much going on in Milwaukee, Fran, over the last few days, and it still may be a little unsettled. I mean, it's summertime in the NBA. Who knows what other dominoes may fall for the Bucks. Yeah. But Braden Burry's at number 10. Just immediately, what is his impact, or how does he fit in once that roster has settled, or at least based on what you see in front of you right now with Milwaukee?
Well, first of all, big picture, Chris, with Milwaukee having to move Giannis, that was a given. I thought they did a really good job, not only in the trade with some really good young players, I thought they did well from that standpoint. They picked up 3 guys that are going to probably be in their rotation right away, and then 2 more with Burries and Nate Amen from Tennessee, who is not ready right now to be a great NBA player, but has certainly a lot of upside. But in Braden Burry specifically, you've got a combo guard who just knows how to score, great attitude, great work ethic. As good as Arizona was this year, and all 5 of those guys will get drafted either this year or next. When he showed up in June, the coaching staff at Arizona said, we knew right away, and everybody did in the gym, he was the best player. Started out not wanting to take a big role because of the veterans on the team, and by the end of the year, he was phenomenal. So this is a great way to restart a Bucks program without Giannis, and I'm a fan of Braden Burries. I don't see him failing, but bigger picture, if you're a Bucks fan, is that they made a lot of moves that I think allow them to start to rebuild quickly.
Fran Fraschilla of ESPN with us here on Westwood One Sports. I just got done before you jumped on, Fran, talking to John Martin in Memphis about the complexion of NBA rosters now, especially in the Western Conference, where I think everybody is looking for some sort of formula that can push them past Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs, and it includes a big front line, multiple guys who can all play on the floor at the same time together. For example, now in Memphis, you've got Edey, Isaiah Stewart, who they traded for last night, and of course Cam Boozer added to the mix. You see that similarly maybe in the Thunder trying to beef up front as well, with Ade Mara added last night in the draft from Michigan. How does he maybe, I don't want to say relieve Chet Holmgren from some of those responsibilities, but how does he help Chet Holmgren with some of those responsibilities when they're going up against Wemby undoubtedly deep in the Western Conference playoffs?
Well, I think if you follow Sam Presti, as you and I both do, Chris, you know that he always has a plan, and as good a general manager as there is in the NBA. And it's interesting. 8 weeks ago, I thought, in analyzing where they might go, especially coming out of the loss to the Spurs, I thought, Ade Mara might be pretty interesting here. 7'3", 7'4", long wingspan. Maybe he checks a little bit of the strength of Wemby. But as I watched the NBA Finals, I saw what Mitch Robinson and OG Anunoby did to Wemby and really roughed them up. Kind of had second thoughts, but I think it can be a factor in slowing down Wemby, but he's not going to be able to slow down Wemby if Wemby takes him away from the basket. But as much as you have to worry about the Spurs if you're OKC, you also have to look at the 82-game schedule and then the future. And obviously Sam Presti thinks there's a lot there with Ade Mara, great passer. I was told that he was really shooting the ball well during his workouts out in California. So, yes, he could be somewhat of an antidote to Wemby. Hard to think that anybody really could on a full-time basis, but they obviously felt his size in one way, shape, or form is going to help, OKC move it forward a little bit from what ended up being a disappointing end of the season. And by the way, if I'm Chet Holmgren right now, even before they drafted Ade Mara, I know I'm in the weight room. I'm going to look like Charles Atlas next October if I have any sense.
Fran Fraschilla with us here on Westwood One Sports. You guys did a great job with the second round coverage last night, Fran. I know it's chaotic because I felt for Malika Andrews trying to keep track of each pick as it's been traded 3, 4, 5 times, and you're trying to figure out which guy's actually going to what squad. Coming out of round 2, though, every team is going to hope that their team can find the second round Jalen Brunson. It doesn't happen all that often. You're not finding Jalen Brunsons in the second round every year. But as you look at the second round and the way it played out last night, are there some candidates maybe that people should be looking at and say, okay, maybe that guy, there's an outside chance he can become the Jalen Brunson of this draft?
Well, now, not having the list in front of me off the top of my head, I think of Henry Vesar. There was a reason he slipped. Now, where the speculation was that his agent was trying to find a home for him where he wouldn't take a two-way deal, which after the first 5 picks of the second round, the agents and teams they confer about how much money a team can pay the pick, and if the agent says no, don't draft my guy, they move on. I think we were all surprised that Henry dropped where he did, and Atlanta, I think, got a steal. Unless there's something medically that we didn't know about, he had a tremendous year at North Carolina at 7 feet. And quite frankly, when Caleb Wilson got hurt for the second time in mid-February, Henry really stepped up his game. So he comes to mind. I can't think of anybody that I think I would predict will be a Jalen Brunson or a Dylan Brooks type. But I would say, like, Emmanuel Sharp of Houston at 45, I think he's going to Sacramento, which gives him an opportunity to play on that team. He's not getting cut. You're not cutting him. He's going to probably find his way into the rotation. So he comes to mind. Jaden Bradley at 50, I think, is your classic, backup point guard. Kind of ironic that I believe he went to Toronto, where they already have a classic overachiever, and another Big 12 guy I covered in Jamal Shedd. So those two guys, particularly, obviously Isaiah Evans slipped into the second round. We didn't expect that, terrific shooter. So those are some guys that I think, jump out at me right away and, could have an impact.
Fran, appreciate your time. Know you got to travel this morning. Great job the last couple of nights with the draft on ESPN. We appreciate you checking in.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, man.
Yep, Fran Fraschilla, ESPN college basketball analyst. And as mentioned, they did a phenomenal job, especially last night. Like the first round, you're going to get some deals, you're going to get some movement, but you feel pretty good about who's going where, especially in a draft like this. And short of any massive shakeups that didn't happen at the top of the first round, you had an idea of how it was going to go down. The second round is just utter chaos. It is. I mean, as they're getting ready to announce picks, the picks are getting traded. Then you've got players getting picked and then getting traded again after it's utter and complete and total chaos. But I thought everyone on the coverage last night did a great job, Fran included. And Vesar is one of the names that jumped out to me as well. When you look at the names that were taken in the second round, interesting to hear Fran talk about the maneuvering that goes on behind the scenes. Vesar's people saying, hey, we want to know we're going to not have to be going back and forth between the G League and this and that. No, we want to know that we're going to be on a roster and we're going to be able to at least be at the NBA level right away. And that leads him where he ends up. And possibly that's your, if you want to put little asterisks next to names that were taken in the second round last night that could be someday, maybe that Jalen Brunson of this year's draft, maybe that's one of them. But that's another unrealistic expectation that's going to come out of the Knicks run this year, is that people are going to look at their team and be like, oh, I mean, and then the Knicks, Brunson, I mean, he was a second rounder. They ended up turning into a star. Why can't we find one of those guys? It's not going to happen every year. It's not. Thanks again to Fran for taking the time this morning. Like I said, even though he had to travel to jump on the horn for just a couple of minutes and break down everything we saw in the last couple of days from a draft perspective. Now, the NBA offseason, with the draft in the rearview mirror now, has not cooled off at all. The breaking news, if you're just jumping in midstream, happened about a little less than an hour ago. LaMelo Ball dealt to the Minnesota Timberwolves in exchange for a 2033. So, 7 years from now, a 2033 unprotected first rounder and Naz Reid. Okay. Again, I don't know how it's going to work out in Minnesota. I've got lots of questions about how that's going to work out with Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball in the same backcourt. Fran seemed to have a more optimistic view of how it could play out than I think a lot of us do at first blush. We'll see how it goes. Another team that's definitely looking to continue to make moves in the NBA offseason. And it's not just hoping that LeBron actually does move on. They extend Austin Reeves yesterday. I would think still looking for a big man. Doug McCain of the new 97.1 The Fan in L.A., D-Mac and Writer every afternoon, 2 to 6 p.m. Pacific out there in L.A., is going to join us to talk about the Los Angeles perspective on the NBA offseason. That's next, right here on Westwood One Sports.
Sports.
Coming up in about 20 minutes, why I think Christian Pulisic should play tonight. I know the match means nothing for Team USA against Turkey. They've won the group, and they most likely know who they're going to play in their first group of 32 knockout round match. So why risk it? I'll tell you why. Coming up here on You Better You Bet, it's Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. And with so much going on in the NBA offseason, there are still plenty of dominoes to fall. The draft is done and over with. The other big news of the last 24 hours, aside from the LaMelo Ball deal just an hour ago, Austin Reeves staying in L.A. How do Lakers fans feel about it? Well, let's go to L.A. and ask somebody who knows. Doug McCain on every afternoon on the new 97.1 The Fan in L.A. alongside writer. He is D-Mac. D-Mac and writer, 2 to 6 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday on 97.1 The Fan in L.A. Checks in now. Doug, let's start with that. Let's start with Austin Reeves. Lakers fans, I mean, this gives you one of the best, if not the best, backcourts in the NBA, while we wait to find out if they're actually able to keep LeBron at arm's length or not. I think Lakers fans have to feel good about Luka and Reeves in the backcourt together.
Exactly. I mean, they have been a good fit with Luka and Austin Reeves on the floor together. They've been a plus 9.2 net rating over 404 minutes together. And yes, they have similar traits. They're really good offensively, and both are average to below average defensively, but Austin Reeves is someone who is a guy that deserves to be paid like he did. I mean, when you put up those kind of numbers, when you're a fringe all-star, when you have the kind of the athleticism that and youth that they kind of need, that's what they needed with Austin Reeves. The number one thing, too, is Luka Doncic went to the front office and said, give me Austin Reeves. And you have to make your biggest star happy, and that's what the case was here. And then also the number one thing, too, is you couldn't lose an asset with his $21 million cap hold and the fact that you're going to pay him. The worst thing that could happen is he leaves. And there was a lot of reports that Detroit was interested, that the Bulls could have been interested, that the Nets were going to be interested. So because of that, the Lakers need to get this deal done, $185 million, and that way he doesn't get to the open market.
Yeah, and like you said, if Luka asks for it, you got to keep Luka happy. He's the face of the franchise now. That being said, when Lakers fans see this happen, and the initial reaction to having Reeves back in the fold is a good one, I would think. But then there's also the question of, well, what does this do to the cap? You pointed out that cap hold that was in place. It doesn't necessarily take them out of the running for anything the rest of this offseason. Where do they now pivot in their offseason, Doug, and how do they look to handle the front court? Because I could say, once you say all due respect, I could say whatever I want. All due respect to DeAndre Ayton, he's not that dude. So how do they pivot and try to address the front court now?
Yeah, we did not love what we saw from DeAndre Ayton at certain times last season. I don't know if you know this. There was a point of the time during the season where they needed to have his crunk juice that they had to put in a bottle to make him feel like he was ready to play. I mean, this is not a joke. This is a real story. There was some friction between Ayton and how he was used, but he has a contract where if he opts in at $8 million, you feel pretty good about it. But you're right. They need to fix the front court because one of the demands, one of the requests that Luka Doncic had when he met with the front office and the new owner of the Lakers, Mark Walter, is an A-list center. And the truth is, an A-list center based on what's available is very different than the true A-list centers in the league, right? The Lakers aren't getting Wembanyama. They're not getting Embiid. They're not getting Joker. But could they get a Walker Kessler as a restricted free agent? Could they make a play on Jalen Duren? There was a report from Windhorst a couple of days ago that maybe you could have for LeBron in a sign and trade to Cleveland and get a Jarrett Allen type, someone like that. But they need to find a way to get a center. You drafted Cameron Carr, which is an athletic wing. He's still going to be a rookie. I was talking to his head coach at Baylor yesterday, And he told me that he thinks, hey, he can start in year one and he can have an impact in year one. Will that be the case? We'll see. But they're going to need to add another center. And with that cap space, you could sign and trade a player into that. You can possibly make a move as an RFA, but you're not going to get the job done with a DeAndre Ayton and Jared Allen. There's still a lot of work to be done, and they have to find a way to add an impact center, to be a lob threat, to be a rim protector with Luka Doncic.
Doug McCain from the new 97.1 The Fan in LA with us here on Westwood One Sports. You can catch him every afternoon, 2 to 6 Pacific out there in LA. D-Mac and Ryder on 97.1 The Fan. What is the general feeling? Like just the general temperature of Lakers fans and people in LA in general, Doug, towards LeBron, and not necessarily whether they want him back or not. I'm sure if they could have him back on a greatly reduced deal, they'd still entertain the option. But has it run its course with Lakers fans and LeBron? Like, okay, we had what we had. Now it's time to move on, LeBron.
It's such an interesting question because I think if you would poll all Lakers fans, I would say that probably 65% still want him here, and the rest want him jettisoned somewhere else, want him to be with the Warriors or want to be with the Cavs, want to be somewhere else because there's this perception that he hijacked the franchise and that he used Clutch and Rich Paul to make moves and that he got the team to draft his son and just that he has too much power over a franchise that has had all these legendary players, but those players never felt like they were bigger than the franchise itself. But I also think there's a lot of Lakers fans, too, that realize that LeBron James rescued this franchise from complete irrelevance. When he came here in 2018, this Lakers team had missed the playoffs 5 straight years. That was the most in franchise history. He was the reason why they were able to get Anthony Davis because of his connection with Rich Paul and Clutch and that relationship. And that led to a championship. Whether or not you think that 2020 championship that was won in Orlando in the bubble is valid, that's your opinion. But the truth is that was a championship, and he did deliver that. He made the Lakers relevant again. And also, to your point, he's still a very productive player at the right price. I mean, should he be paid as a first option to get the max? I would say the answer is no. But, I mean, if you are going to sign him for 15 to 20 million, 25 million, something in that range, you're getting a guy that was 26-6 last year. Really, a guy who was your best player in the playoffs at 41, 42 years old. So I always say that LeBron James, for Lakers fans, it's like they're that kid that's tired of playing with that toy that every kid wishes they had, right? So let's not take LeBron James for granted. And I think that it's a really smart play for LeBron for the perception of him. If he took a little less money and that was the perception, and he kind of joined that list of guys like maybe a Tom Brady, or look at what Shohei Ohtani did by deferring most of his contract to help the Dodgers add talent. If he could do something like that, and that's the perception of him, was I took less money to help this team add more talent and go for a championship, I think that he would help his reputation. But it is a complicated relationship between LeBron James and the fans here in Los Angeles.
Do you think it's almost more a sense of nostalgia, Doug? Like, I've been a fan of plenty of teams where it's like, okay, I don't want to see the team break up the core that won the title or say goodbye to the superstar. Is that what keeps that 65% of Lakers fans that you mentioned that would like to see LeBron back? Is that what keeps them in his corner, just that sense of nostalgia and I guess the desire for the Lakers to always have more than one superstar on the roster?
I think there's definitely something to that, right? I mean, there's a familiarity there. There's a lot of fans that say, hey, this is the city of stars. And LeBron James, at the peak of his powers, was as big as it gets. And I think, too, that there's a lot of Lakers fans that realize, the smart ones know, that in this day and age, in Adam Silver's NBA in the big 2026, that it's not easy to add superstar talent. It's not easy to add star talent because of the aprons, because of what's available to them. And also, too, I'll add this, Rob Pelinka has not done a great job building this roster even after he got Luka Doncic, right? You haven't seen him add long-term pieces. He missed on the draft for the last 2 seasons with Dalton Connect and Jalen Hood-Schifino. So it's not like there's a ton of depth. It's not like there's a ton of options. But I think the Lakers fans that want LeBron James back. The Lakers fans that still support him realize that, hey, beggars can't be choosers in this situation. It's a very tough Western Conference with San Antonio still ascending, with the Thunder still deep and having a very talented roster. And they realize that, hey, there's not that many better options. So LeBron James certainly at the right price, along with Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves and JJ Redick, I think has done a really, really good job as a young head coach. I mean, it could be a lot worse. Look, I'll just say it. We're spoiled, man. Like, we're spoiled out here in LA with stars, and the Lakers standard is absolutely ridiculous in the best way possible.
So have Lakers fans, I guess, embraced the idea of this being Luka and Austin Reeves' team then, if LeBron most likely is not back? Are they comfortable, I guess, with the idea of, hey, we're Hollywood, we need to have those faces? Are they good with Luka being that guy?
I think they absolutely are. I think we're ready for the turning of the page, the complete shift to the Luka Doncic chapter of this all, because let's be honest, if LeBron James does ultimately decide to come back to the Lakers, that's probably going to come with some type of retirement farewell tour, something that is going to be a level, I don't want to say distraction, but is definitely going to be one of the top storylines that you're going to go to different arenas and you'll have that team play a big highlight reel of LeBron James, and maybe teams will give him a rocking chair. And I just don't know if a franchise like the Lakers, one that's saying, hey, we need to win with our superstar, is going to want to love and embrace that. But you look at Luka Doncic, he hasn't won an MVP. He hasn't won a title. And in this franchise, outside of Elgin Baylor, every superstar that puts on that jersey delivers a championship. So the big question is, can LeBron James at 42 help this team win a championship next season? Or even with the loss of LeBron James, does that accelerate their path to another title? I mean, that's the big question right now based on the kind of the assets that they do have.
Doug McCain on 97.1 The Fan in LA every afternoon, 2 to 6 p.m. Pacific time, as a part of DMAC and Writer with us here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Let me pivot to the Dodgers, because you're the man at Dodgers Nation. You lead the way in Dodgers coverage out there in LA. I want to ask about Kyle Tucker. How do Dodgers fans feel about Kyle Tucker right now here towards the end of June? Do they feel like they're getting, I guess, their money's worth?
Yeah, so it hasn't been a good year for Kyle Tucker. He has been, by basically every statistical metric, average to below average in most offensive categories. And there's just this disconnect between him and the fan base, just because he's not a guy that shows a lot of emotion, has kind of gone out there and been front-facing. But that's just his personality. I don't think that fans would necessarily care if he was a really good player and he was an all-star bat like he's been throughout his career. But it just feels like Dodgers fans, they were patient and they were waiting, and you just haven't seen it yet. And the good news is, if you are the Dodgers, you still have the best record in baseball, even with a player that you're paying $60 million a year to not having an all-star season. I mean, they're really one of the only teams, I think, in baseball that can absorb that. And I remember I asked the Dodgers president of baseball operations this past offseason about Kyle Tucker when he brings this offense, and he was calling him a floor raiser. And how many teams would give a guy $60 million just to be a floor raiser? Most franchises are saying, no, that's our franchise player. He's got a bad third. We need to be good for us to be great. And the Dodgers have so many stars that they're able to absorb it. But the fans, they're patient. But this is also the Dodgers. This is also a fan base that knows what greatness looks like with Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts. So really right now, the perception is that he's not living up to that big contract, and they're starting to grow impatient.
Deadline is a little more than a month away, Doug. How legit is their interest in Tarek Skubal, especially given that look, the Dodgers are a team that doesn't plan for September necessarily. They plan for October, right? And to have a postseason rotation where you have that stud lefty in the mix to go along with Shohei and Yamamoto from the right side, is that of massive importance to the Dodgers? Do they feel like they have to get that done?
It feels like they're going to be at the table. We had Jeff Passan on the show yesterday, and it feels like from him, that is the number one play that they're going to make, knowing that they have a chance to do something extremely special, and that is win 3 straight World Series titles. You also have the looming collective bargaining issue, and there could be a lockout, so there's some uncertainty about the future. Could we have a salary cap in baseball? So would that lead the Dodgers just to want to add as much talent as they possibly can now without any restrictions? But you're right. I mean, this is a team that last season, they won the World Series on the backs of elite starting pitching. That Game 7, every single one of the Dodgers starters, Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Glasnow, and Blake Snell all pitched in that Game 7 in some capacity, and those are all high-priced starters making over $100 million. So point is, they feel like elite starting pitching is what wins in the postseason, especially when hitting an overall offense is just down across the board, Major League Baseball. And for Tarek Skubal, I think part of the draw there is, even though he has struggled a little bit in his 3 starts since coming back from that surgery, is if you're the Dodgers and you don't get Tarek Skubal, well, you're going to probably have to face Tarek Skubal. And that could be a team like the Milwaukee Brewers who could have a Jacob Mizorowski who, if things continue the way it has this season, would go on to win the Cy Young, and Tarek Skubal in a potential 5-game series. And that's what wins in the postseason. So the Dodgers are in a position where you have an elite farm system, you have a surplus of outfielders, you have some current pitchers that you could throw into that deal that could be win-now starters for them, and they have all the ingredients to get a deal done. There have been conversations between the Dodgers and the Tigers going back to the winter meetings last year in Orlando. So there have been a lot of conversations between the two. I think that it's the kill shot for the Dodgers. I think it's the sweep the leg. I think it's the, hey, we're going all the way in on this thing, and we realize the potential we have now because you're not going to have these many opportunities. So, look, whether or not they get Tarek Skubal, that remains to be seen, but they're going to be at that table, and I do think they're going to be aggressive, and they're going to try to get that deal done.
Doug, appreciate your time this morning. Enjoy. It's been a great start to the new lineup there at 97.1 The Fan in LA. We appreciate you taking the time.
You're the man. I appreciate you, my man. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Doug McCain, 97.1 The Fan in LA every afternoon. It's D-Mac and Ryder from 2 to 6 Pacific there in LA. And obviously the Lakers offseason is top of mind. But when you've got the Dodgers being, well, the Dodgers, I mean, the embarrassment of riches in a possible postseason rotation that would include Ohtani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, and then just add Tarek Skubal to the mix too, as well as maybe Tyler Glasnow, maybe Blake Snell, if those two are healthy and ready to go in October. That's the definition of embarrassment of riches. Coming up top of the hour, I don't understand how major professional athletes continue to get themselves jammed up in situations like the one that we had break overnight down in Florida as it relates to a guy who plays for a team where we're told this kind of stuff isn't really tolerated. Tell you exactly what's going on with Terry and Arnold at the top of the hour, plus we'll power rank our favorite NFL tight end groups. But coming up next, I know the match means nothing tonight for the U.S. men's national team in their final group stage match against Turkey. But I'll still tell you why I think it's imperative that Christian Pulisic is out there back on the pitch against Turkey tonight in the World Cup. That's next here on Westwood One Sports.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
The chat has been all over the place this morning, but it's definitely been contentious. I mean, I've seen arguments about the best running backs of all time. I'm now seeing arguments about the best duos in the NBA currently. One of them just doesn't feel like they belong. Coming up in just a second, though, I'm going to tell you why. With this final group stage match, meaning absolutely nothing for Team USA, they still need to get Christian Pulisic on the field tonight. Sorry, on the pitch tonight in their matchup against Turkey. Get to that in just a second here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos on You Better You Bet. It is time for the world's top stars to go head-to-head on the pitch, so grab today's Odds Boost token inside your BetMGM app and join the excitement. Make your World's Game moment. Activate your token for any World's Game bet. You'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. Download the BetMGM app today, and please gamble responsibly. Yeah, like our friends at BetMGM just posted on Instagram a second ago, ranking the best NBA duos. Jalen Brunson and Kat 1, Jokic and Murray 2, Wemby and Dylan Harper 3, not Wemby and Stephon Castle, okay. Giannis and Bam 4, SGA and Chet 5, Tatum and Brown 6, Ant and LaMelo 7, right ahead of Maxey and Embiid. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't. Maybe my brain just isn't properly processing the LaMelo Ball trade yet. But I would just make it top 7 NBA duos and probably not have Ant and LaMelo on the list. I know that defeats the purpose of social media reaction. But I don't. I'm not going to be convinced it's going to work until I actually see it work. And not just work in the regular season, but like work in the playoffs in a game of consequence. LaMelo and Ant. But that's the big move this morning for those of you just getting up and getting going. LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Naz Reid, a future first, and a couple of other pick swaps and second rounders as well. We'll continue to break that down throughout the day here on Westwood One Sports. Top of the hour, we rank our favorite tight end groups and the latest on Terry and Arnold. It's a disaster. It's a mess. I don't understand why guys continue to get themselves wrapped up in this kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, Christian Pulisic needs to play tonight for Team USA. And I understand the match means nothing, but there's a good chance, better than a 90% chance, the U.S. men's national team is going to play Bosnia in their first knockout round match in the round of 32 a week from now. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've watched a bunch of Bosnian soccer. I haven't. But you do some quick reading on what that squad is all about. They're going to play physical. They're going to come at you. They're going to foul. They're going to foul hard. And I want to see Christian Pulisic out there tonight. At the very least, shake some rust off. Play a half. Okay? Just get him 45 minutes. Get him out there feeling good, shaking the rust off, so that he's not shaking the rust off while Bosnian defenders are diving spikes up at that recovering calf muscle. I know it means nothing tonight, but in my opinion anyway, even though a week ago I was very much on board with just letting Pulisic sit until you got to the knockout stage, at this point, knowing the kind of team they're going to face in that first knockout round, how physical they are, and how I think they'll try and translate that into slowing Pulisic down, I'd like to see him get out there and shake off the rust tonight so that he's full go next week in the first knockout round match against, most likely, Bosnia. We won't know for sure, I don't think, until at the earliest late tonight, probably more like Saturday, once the group stage is totally wrapped up, who they're going to face, Team USA. But the percentages say it's Bosnia. Get Pulisic out there. Just get him running around and feeling it again tonight, even if it means absolutely nothing. Coming up, with Kyle Pitts and Brenton Strange signing new deals and tight end university going on in Nashville, it's been all about the tight ends this week in the NFL. I want to power rank the teams strongest at that position across the league, and we'll update you on some overnight breaking news as well. That's next here on Westwood One Sports.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
I assure you, it is not just an excuse for me to talk about Darnell Washington. I assure you that. But we will power rank the best tight end groups around the NFL in just a minute here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos. It is the Power Hour here on You Better You Bet. Coming up in 20 minutes. It's a weird week for me. I'll explain why and how it influenced something we'll do. It'll just be a classic dudes naming guys kind of segment in 20 minutes. But I'm curious to see how it breaks along generational lines. Bill and I being the elder statesmen here of the show, and Kenny and Tyler, who I imagine will bring all of their memories flooding back of like the last 10 years and no farther back. Somebody has collapsed to new depths. Last night, a new low for a team that we didn't think could reach a new low. That's coming up before we wrap up the final hour of the show as well. But before we get to all that, this is, I don't know how else to react to this other than why. Why is this happening to a guy who is making millions of dollars, who seemingly is an important piece of a team that should be chasing conference championships, if not a Super Bowl, assuming they can get back to the playoffs this year. And I'm just left shaking my head asking, why? Why is this happening? Breaking news overnight, for those of you that may have missed it, Lions corner Terrion Arnold is facing multiple felony charges after he was arrested late last night in Tampa in connection with a robbery and kidnapping in February. Tampa police arrested Arnold and 6 other people in this weird situation where apparently Terrion Arnold believes he had stuff stolen from an Airbnb and wanted to exact revenge, punish the people that he thought stole the stuff. I don't know, but came up with this big thing where 2 friends of his lured the victims, the people that he thought were the perpetrators in this theft, to an apartment. He had people jumping out of closets, according to the accusations, the complaint filed by Tampa police, and holding people at gunpoint. It's just, I don't understand. I really don't. And look, maybe I grew up too sheltered. I don't know. But I don't understand how when you've made it to the peak, the pinnacle, you're an NFL corner playing for one of the better teams in the league, and you still decide that this is the right way forward to handle any kind of situation, whether you felt like you had wrong done to you or not. You feel like, yeah, the best way to handle this is to have some friends of mine lure some people to an apartment so some other people can jump out of a closet with guns, again, all allegedly, and take their stuff while holding them at gunpoint. I just, we'll see how this shakes out. Maybe there's more to the story, but I don't know how much more to the story there would have to be for me to not walk away from it shaking my head at Terrion Arnold and saying, what were you even thinking, if you were thinking, to get involved in that situation? But it did break overnight, so I wanted to address it with you guys. I don't think there's... Look, the Lions are a team that I think a lot of us, myself included, have talked about as a team that should return to the playoffs this year. This is just another thing that we've been told Dan Campbell doesn't like to put up with troublemakers. This would qualify as making trouble. And this is a key piece of your secondary. And I'm not saying it's the kind of thing that derails a season, but especially in late June. But damned if it isn't stupid. Just stupid. So keep it on Westwood One Sports. I'm sure there will be updates to the story, and we'll have reaction for you all the time inside the Westwood One Sports app, also live inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY, and live across North America on Sirius XM Channel 375. But I did want to bring up the Brenton Strange extension with the Jaguars. Obviously, we had the Kyle Pitts extension earlier this week in Atlanta. Tight end is just, it's the sexy position right now in the NFL. It is. As look, I'm not trying to say tight end is more important than quarterback or edge rusher or left tackle or wide receiver or any of that. But you've got tight end U going on. You've got Taylor Swift performing for them. Tight ends are becoming more and more valuable in offenses around the league. Not that they didn't have value before, but you see teams like the Rams going all in at the tight end position. And so I thought it would be instructive to power rank the best NFL tight end groups. And you can disagree with my power rankings. You can think they're terrible. You can react to them however you'd like to react to them. But these are my power rankings, and so they're mine. And you can think they're terrible. You can think they're just an excuse to bring up Darnell Washington to the Steelers. Or you can think they're fantastic. Whatever. That's what power rankings are for. And I'm going to start at number 5. Because at number 5 is, look, I've had plenty of questions about this team coming into this year. Another team that's looking to return to the playoffs this year after a disappointing season last year. A team probably worried about how their injured quarterback is going to bounce back this year, even though they expect him back for week 1. One of the keys to this injured quarterback bouncing back will be that his increasingly elderly by football standards tight end has one big year left in him. So at number 5, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Based on Travis Kelce, yes, but also based on Noah Gray, who I think is a strong complement to Travis Kelce and will eventually take over the spot as tight end 1 in Kansas City, probably a whole lot sooner rather than later. But I think as long as Kelce is around and exists and has Patrick Mahomes throwing footballs to him, especially given the weakness of their receiving core, that's number 5 for me, the Chiefs, in our power rankings of the best tight end rooms. Number 4, they've been in the top 5 for me for the last couple of years, and I don't think there's any reason to drop them out of it. Again, a team that their receiving core does not inspire me in a big way. They made one key addition this offseason, but the quarterback, especially as much as he moves, is always looking for the tight ends. And I think both of their top tight ends are always a danger in the red zone. Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, the Buffalo Bills, I have at number 4 in my power ranking of the best tight end rooms. And Kenny Arbordop undoubtedly starting to sweat because he's wondering whether I'm going to include the group that he really wants me to include now in the top 3. Because he knows if I don't include his group in the top 3, drastic measures will have to be taken. Well, they're not at number 3, Kenny. Number 3 on my power ranking of the best tight end groups in the league right now. Yes, this is my excuse to mention Darnell Washington to you, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Congrats, by the way, to my friend Pat Fryermuth. We are Penn State, who just got married a couple weeks ago. Pat Fryermuth is actually going to get used in the Steelers offense this year, unlike last year, when I'm pretty sure Arthur Smith forgot that he existed for weeks at a time. Now, admittedly, that's on me and Steelers fans as a whole, I think, for not counting on the fact that Arthur Smith would forget that a key piece of the offense exists. Did it for a while in Atlanta with Bijan, right? B who? What? Rob what? I mean, The man forgot that Bijan Robinson existed at times in the Falcons offense. We should not have been surprised that he went to Pittsburgh last year and forgot that Pat Freiermuth existed. With an aging quarterback who is very interested in getting rid of the ball quickly, to not utilize the middle of the field, and Pat Freiermuth was a fireable offense last year. And then you add in Darnell Washington, who just increasingly takes bigger steps forward because Darnell Washington can't take small steps. He's a massive human being. He is a receiver in an offensive tackle's body. He can block like a tackle. He can catch like a receiver. Good luck if you are a member of an opposing secondary once he catches the ball and gets going downhill. Darnell Washington will squash you like a bug. And I suspect that we'll get another year of steady, maybe even exponential improvement from Darnell Washington in a Mike McCarthy offense where, look, he's not going to run a ton of multiple tight end sets, but when he does, you could do a whole lot worse than Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington on the field at the same time. And Muth and his blocking, we don't have to talk about that, but I still like them as a top 3 tight end duo in this league right now. Number 2, you can exhale, Kenny. It's the Chicago Bears. I mean, how do you not like what they've done pairing Loveland and Kmet together? Colston Loveland, look, as much as our guy Kenny absolutely loves Luther Burden and Rome Odunze and thinks that every single ball in the Bears offense should go to those two, probably more so Luther Burden. Caleb Williams spreading the ball out all over the field doesn't work without Loveland and Kmet. You pair those two together, I think it's vitally important to the Bears offense to succeed this year and continue to grow from where they were last year, that Loveland continues to take another step forward and Kmet there as more than a viable complement. Okay, Sam Roush, do we want to throw him into the mix? 3rd round pick this year? Yeah, sure. Why not? It's a strong tight end room they've built in Chicago. So they're number 2 for me. Number 1, I mentioned them off the top. How many tight ends do they have on the roster now in LA? The Rams. Number 1 tight end room in the league. Parkinson is just a really big receiver. Higbee, red zone threat. You go out and draft Max Clare, who I think will have an immediate impact as much as a number 3 tight end can have an immediate impact. And there are 3 to 5 more tight ends on the roster. Yes, please. Best tight end room in the league. And this is the part where I'm going to open up the floor to my friends, Bill and Tyler and Kenny, so they can tell me how I got it wrong by not including Brock Bowers and the Raiders. Michael Mayer, a part of that as well. Bill, I'll let you jump in here and tell me who else I may have forgotten, as I have Rams, Bears, Steelers, Bills, Chiefs as my top 5 tight end rooms in the NFL right now. Do you want to start with the Raiders? Did I whiff there?
No, well, let Tyler hop on and talk about the Raiders because that was his pick. Mine, I agree. The Rams are a great tight end room. This isn't I don't think this is the number 1 room because we haven't seen it mesh. We haven't seen it on the field yet. But I think one of the rooms you have to put in the top 5 is the LA Chargers, who Oronde Gadsden had a phenomenal rookie season last year, already established himself as one of the top receiving tight ends in the league. And then what else do? They go sign Charlie Kolar, and they go out and get David Njoku. So those are their top 3 tight ends. I think that is a fantastic group. I think Herbert's going to eat with that. I think the Chargers have to be in your top 5.
All right. Who would you replace? You taking the Chiefs out?
Probably. Well, I mean, the Chiefs. If you want to give Kelsey a last ride, that's fine. Get Buffalo out of there.
All right, we'll take the Bills out. I like Knox and Kincaid more, I think, than other people do.
I like
Tyler,
Dalton Kincaid in theory, but who Dalton Kincaid is in reality, he's just killing my dynasty team. So he can go fly a kite.
I did think about Bowers and Mayer and the Raiders room. I know I'm supposed to be ranking just the tight end rooms. My concern was with who the hell's going to throw them the ball. Okay, Mendoza will be along fine. He'll be here soon enough. But Mayer as a decent compliment to Bowers, okay. I can't put them top 5 yet. Tyler's having some audio issues. So it is something that the AFC West, because look, I don't think the Broncos room ranks up there. They've got Troutman and Evan Ingram. But the AFC West is as strong in tight ends as they are. Tyler, do we have you now? Do you want to tell me how I screwed up leaving the Raiders out?
Yeah, I think leaving the Raiders out is pretty tough. Because if you want to say like the Bears are one of the top tight end rooms in the league, which I do agree. Like Brock Bowers is better than Colson Loveland. And to me, Michael Mayer is like the same, if not a little better than Cole Kmet. So to me, like that's like, you got to put the Raiders in top 5. I also agree with the Chargers as well. Honestly, I would just kick the Kansas City Chiefs out. You could even put the Arizona Cardinals in there just because they have Trey McBride and like nobody else matters. So just take Kansas City out, put the Cardinals at 5. But I think you missed out on the Raiders. That to me, that was my number 1 tight end room.
So the Cardinals were another one I considered, like you said, just based on nothing else but the strength of Trey McBride. But I committed myself to ranking rooms rather than just individual players. So I left McBride and the Cardinals out. And I don't want to make it seem like it was simple to slot the Chiefs at number 5. But until I see Kelsey fall all the way off, Tyler, I'm keeping the Chiefs in there.
Totally fair. I'm going to be honest. When I did this in my head, Raiders were number 1. I thought we were talking in the chat. I thought that was going to be Bills number 1 as well with the Raiders. I thought we were all going to come to a consensus there. I was surprised you didn't have them in the top 5. So shame on you, Chris.
Shame on me. That's my power rankings. That's why they're my power rankings. My power rankings are the best in my mind. And you guys can think that my power rankings suck. Or you can absolutely love them. Kenny just... I could tell was sweating when I got to 3 and I still didn't have the Bears involved. You were ready to jump all over me, weren't you, Kenneth?
Yeah, I was. I think you have to put him in there, though. I mean, Kmet could be a tight end 1 on what, like 20 teams in the NFL?
At least 15, yeah, I would think. But I mean, Tyler just told you, Kenny, he's got Bowers and Mayer is better than Loveland and Kmet. You guys want to have it out here and now?
No, I'll agree with that. But the one thing that the Bears have that the Raiders don't have is an actual quarterback to get them the ball. So
important key there. Important key. So there's our power rankings of the best tight end groups as it's been the week of tight ends with the extensions in Jacksonville and Atlanta and tight end university going on. By the way, the best part of tight end I don't know if you guys saw this, Mac Jones dancing while throwing footballs, and not just dancing like me after I've had a couple of drinks at a wedding reception. Classic middle-aged white dude moves, even though he's not a middle-aged white dude. Props to Mac for just having no F's left to give and dancing for the entire world to see. Dance like no one's watching. That's up on a wall somewhere in Mac Jones' house right now. He bought it at TJ Maxx the same time my wife was there, spending way too much on scented candles. Coming up next, more dudes naming guys, because something weird is happening this week, and it got me to thinking about some of the best trios of all time in sports, any sport. And we'll go through the list. We may argue. We may, I don't know. I imagine Bill and I will get laughed at for naming people from the 80s. It'll all happen next, right here on Westwood One Sports.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Coming up in 20 minutes, little less than that, the depths of despair for one ball club. They have, just when you thought they'd reached the bottom, they find a new low. If there were 7 layers of hell, this team is in the 8th layer and still somehow descending. That coming up in less than 20 minutes here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. In just a second, dudes naming guys. We will tell you some of our favorite sports trios of all time, and I'll explain where the idea came from in just a second. But can we pause and can I just complain about social media and the internet for just a second? And I'm going to try to do it without sounding like a dude in his mid-40s. There was a fantastic commercial released yesterday, okay, that involves Paul Skeens. And I don't say this as a Pittsburgher either. This isn't just me going full Yinzer for the sake of being Yinzer. I'm not, dropping my dons and my odds. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go full McAfee on this thing. But I am going to point out that the convenience store, Sheetz, which if you're from the Philly area, Jersey, Wawa, right? There's some of those down in Florida too and up and down the East Coast. The convenience store Sheetz released a commercial yesterday starring Paul Skeens. It's all about this new foot-long hot dog that they're selling. And I thought it was as funny as a commercial for convenience store hot dogs starring one of the best pitchers in baseball could be. Skeens pulls it off. There is an allusion to Livy Dunn at one point, even though they don't name her. And look, this is for this little company based in Altoona, Pennsylvania, that has grown into one of the biggest convenience store chains on the East Coast. Can we get some love to Sheetz? But instead, there are just people jumping into the mentions deriding this commercial, which is, it's ultimately at its core, my friends, about a damn gas station foot-long hot dog. If you have criticisms about it trying to be humorous, may I suggest that your sense of humor may not be the strongest, and to uninstall some apps, put the phone down, and as the kids like to say, go outside and touch some damn grass, okay? It's a commercial for a gas station hot dog. That's as good a commercial for a gas station hot dog as you're ever going to see in your entire life. Sorry, I came off a little defensive of Paul Skeens and Sheetz there, but sorry. That's where I am. So I mentioned it's a weird week for me. Not because I'm filling in for Nick several days, today and tomorrow, but because it's that time of year where it feels like concerts are very prevalent. Like you got the outdoor concert season going on in a lot of parts of the country. And I'm going to 3 separate concerts this week. I've already been to one, going to another one tomorrow night, another one on Saturday night. And these artists could not be more different. Like, I challenge you to find all 3 of these artists on the same Humans playlist. But here I am. Tuesday night, I went to a Godsmack show with Stone Temple Pilots opening, which, by the way, their new lead singer, I can't remember his last name, his first name is Jeff, is like a Scott Weiland clone, R.I.P. But Godsmack and Stone Temple Pilots on Tuesday night. Tomorrow night, I will go to see Riley Green, not the Tigers outfielder, the country singer. And Saturday night, I am going to see Christopher Cross. Yes, yacht rock legend Christopher Cross. Ride like the wind. Ba-da-da-da. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Sorry, that's all I can do before we have to pay rights fees. So, Godsmack and STP one night, Riley Green a couple days later, Christopher Cross on Saturday. That is a hell of a trio of concerts that, again, you will probably not find on One Human's playlist anywhere in creation outside of mine, obviously. Also, full disclosure, Kenny Henderson has no idea who any of these acts are. I confirmed that with him over the weekend. But it got me to thinking, trios, great trios in sports over the years. And I've got a list of like 10 off the top of my head that I wrote down last night. And I want to see where we go with this. So once again, I'm going to bring the crew in to hear some of it. Is just dudes naming guys. It's one of the best parts of life. Bill, I want to start with you because we are the elder statesmen of the show here today. And also because if I throw this in Kenny's direction, I have no idea where it may go, but I know it will exist in the last decade and no farther back. So give me your favorite sports trio of all time. I'll give you just one.
Can we just do one right now? All right.
Just one to start.
Mine's pretty obvious because I'm a Chicago guy, and this was the peak of Chicago sports domination. And we're going second three-peat with the Chicago Bulls, and that, of course, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman.
That one of the trios I had written down, and I can't dispute it. As someone who didn't grow up with an NBA team, but grew up watching the Bulls constantly because, well, they were constantly shoved down our throats on national television for good reason. I don't think it gets better than Jordan, Pippen, Rodman in any sport in the late 90s. I'm right there with you, Bill. Tyler, I'm going to go to you next. You get to name one great sports trio of all time.
Yeah, my favorite growing up was LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. I lived and died with those teams. Not a Heat fan. I'm a Sixers fan, so this team just routinely beat my team all the time. So I'll take the trio with the best NBA player of all time, LeBron, Wade, and Bosh.
LeBron, Wade, and Bosh is solid. I did not have them written down. I'm a little more nostalgic for the days of yore. So I had a feeling, though, that you and Kenny would pull up something from like the last 10 to 15 years and no farther back, which brings us to Mr. Henderson on the board. Kenny, your favorite sports trio of all time?
I know you love this one, Chris, and I know they didn't win anything, but the Killer Bees of Pittsburgh. Just so much fun to watch. Ben Roethlisberger, one of the gutsiest quarterbacks of all time. Not much else to say about him, but the Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown were just special. I mean, words can't even describe. I mean, especially Antonio Brown. I know he's really messed up at this point, but as a kid growing up watching those guys, it was special, and I wish the run lasted longer. That game against the Jaguars in the divisional playoffs, what was that?
Yeah, I remember it, Kenny. I remember it. Why don't you just twist the knife while you're stabbing me in the back with it? Really? They were a great look. They were fantastic for what they were. Okay, Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, the Killer Bees, as they were known. They didn't win crap. They didn't win a damned thing. Now, a lot of that had to do with the defenses just sucking out loud. But I appreciate you taking this opportunity to mention something that is very painful to me. I thank you for that. I'm going to go back to pain for me, and I know Bill will remember this. There was a trio that caused me so much pain as a kid in the early 90s. Because, again, as people know, I'm a Pittsburgher, grew up a fan of all Pittsburgh sports teams, and there was no more dastardly trio in baseball than Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz, Bill. They ripped hearts out and showed them to opposing offenses while they were still beating.
Yeah, I had that on my short list. That is a great one. I know a lot of the kids like to go back and watch the highlights and rip the Braves pitchers for having too big of a strike zone. But that is an all-time great one. I thought when you were talking about getting your heart ripped out, I thought you were about to go Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin for that Steelers Super Bowl.
Yeah, that didn't rip my heart out as much as that's more about just me having a Neil O'Donnell voodoo doll that I continually poke with pins over and over and over again wherever Neil O'Donnell is. Neil, if you're listening, hi, good morning. The triplets were you can't. For the only football trio, in my opinion, that even compares to Aikman, Irvin, and Emmitt Smith was, again, we're aging ourselves, Bill, but Montana, Rice, and Craig. As a child of the 80s, the Niners with Montana, Rice, and Craig that was every afternoon. You knew the Niners were going to be on, and Roger Craig had 1,000-yard receiving seasons while having 1,000-yard rushing seasons. They're right up there, a close second, I think, to Aikman, Irvin, and Emmitt.
I agree with that, and Roger Craig's a Hall of Famer, and yeah, like you said, 1,000 yards rushing and receiving in the same season. But for some reason, I always say it's like Montana and Rice, right? Like you always hear that as a duo. I agree, Craig's there, and it should be considered a trio, but it never gets trio love like Emmitt and Aikman and Irvin do.
A couple others I wanted to throw out. Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili in San Antonio, multiple rings. We can't forget them. For that matter, again, old men talking here, boys. Just take a step back for a second. Bird, McHale, and Parrish. Go back and look up the highlights, my friends. The Celtics of the 80s. And I will give... Oh, I almost forgot. Magic, Kareem, and Worthy also, if we want to go back to the 80s in the NBA. And I'll give one to the kids. Tyler and Kenny, the fact that neither one of you mentioned Curry, Green, and Thompson, Steph, Draymond, and Clay, I'll be honest, I'm utterly shocked by that, Tyler.
In fairness, you asked for my favorite. I gave you LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. The Curry, Durant, Thompson team took a title away from LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, so they had to move them down to second.
All right, Bill, you got a deep cut? Give me something.
I got a deep cut trio. I don't know how many people consider this a trio, but this is an all-time trio, and this is college football all-time trio. I think the greatest running trio in the history of college football, and they won a championship doing it. And that is Tommy Frazier, Lawrence Phillips, and Amon Green.
That's a hell of a call.
They ran for like 2,500 yards combined when they went. Like they were insane.
Tom Osborne wishbone, baby. I had wiped all memory of those teams from the back of my brain because Penn State deserved the national title in 1994 and Tom Osborne can burn in hell for it. But that's why I completely forgot. But that actually is a great call. All right, a couple more dudes naming guys since we're talking about the best sports trios of all time. Kenny, who did you have?
Yeah, I'm going to give you my favorite basketball trio of all time. And I know all the old heads hate all three of these guys, but Durant, Westbrook, and Harden, watching those guys all come up together that meant something to me. It meant something to me. That's all I'll say. And I'm still a fan. I'm hard on KD. I've shown that over this show, but I'm still a fan of all those guys, and I think despite their lack of playoff success, they're all still legends of the game, and watching them come up together was special.
Why do you love the trios that haven't won crap, Kenny? The Killer Bees, Westbrook,
because no
Harden,
one talks
Durant.
about them anymore, but they were special when we were watching them live. It was special. Just because they didn't win anything doesn't mean we don't have to talk about them.
They were special in the same way a three-legged dog is special, Kenny. They're that kind of special. No, I'm sorry. I'm not letting you sully this list with the mention of the OKC Thunder of Russ, Harden, and KD. I'm not going to do it. Any others we want to throw out there before we... Oh, Tyler, that's a good call in the 90s.
How about Run TMC?
Well, that's good, too.
1-0.
Yeah, that's it. That may have just wrapped it up right there. We're done. Tyler was going to mention the next one is Ohtani, Freeman, and Betts. Everybody in LA will love that one. But okay, dudes naming guys. That's what the middle of summer is for. Our favorite sports trios of all time.
You didn't mention the Penguins.
Because I didn't want to be that guy, Bill. I didn't. I didn't want to. I was yinzer enough in mentioning Sheets and Paul Skeens and then going off about how the Killer Bees had no defense. But I'll do it, okay? There you go. You lured me right into your web, Bill. There are two Penguins trios that need to be recognized because they both won multiple cups together. Lemieux, Yager, and Francis. Go look them up from the 90s, kids. Lethal power play when they actually shot the puck. And Crosby, Malkin, and Letang still currently together for who knows how much longer. At least one more year, probably. But there you go. There are some of our favorite sports trios of all time. Okay, a team has plumbed new depths of ineptitude. We'll let you hear it for yourself coming up next. Plus, our 3 favorite moments of the day, our 3 stars to wrap up the show here next on Westwood One Sports.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Coming up in just a minute to wrap up the show, we'll give you our 3 favorite moments from today's edition of You Better You Bet, our 3 stars of the day. On the way, Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports. We'll be back tomorrow as well. The great Tommy Smith scheduled to join us tomorrow to talk World Cup. Obviously, the U.S. takes on Turkey tonight. I've told you I'd like to see Christian Pulisic out there at least a little bit, knock some rust off before they go on to the knockout round. Yeah, I know it doesn't mean anything tonight, but still would like to see him out there. It is time for the world's top stars to go head-to-head on the pitch. Grab today's Odds Boost token inside the BetMGM app. Join the excitement. Make your World's Game moment. Activate your token for any World's Game bet, and you'll receive a bigger payout if that bet wins. Download the BetMGM app today, and please gamble responsibly. I got a baseball bet for you in a second, but speaking of baseball, just when you thought this team's collapse could not get any lower or reach any deeper depths, I think we have the audio from it, Kenny. This happened in the second game of a doubleheader last night between the Mets and the Cubs at Citi Field. This is part of Game 2 last night.
Unbelievable. The 6th infield error for the Mets tonight. Second for Vientos. And that puts runners at first and third. I mean, what do you say at this point? I mean, this team is in the depths of despair. Can't get starting pitching to hold the other team at bay. Struggling with their offense. And now the defense falls apart.
Gary and Ron on the call. Yeah, they're singular name at this point. Best broadcast crew in baseball. The Mets, 6 errors, all by the infield last night. Led to 5 earned runs, a 10-5 loss to the Cubs at Citi Field. They've now lost 5 in a row. Every single starting infielder, Francisco Lindor, Marcus Semien, Bo Bichette, Mark Vientos, committed at least 1 error. That is the first time since 1962, their expansion year, that all 4 starting infielders for the Mets made an error in the same game. That is why they have plumbed new depths of hell. Like I said, if there were 7 layers, they are in the 8th layer of hell, the Mets. Just an absolute abject disaster. As for the baseball bet, it involves the other New York team who is off to Fenway. They play the Red Sox tonight. The Yankees do. And yeah, the Red Sox are in the basement. They suck as well. But Cam Schlittler is on the mound. AL Cy Young favorite for the Yankees. Obviously, he's been dominant all year. Only 4 out of his 16 starts has he given up multiple earned runs. And he's plus money to go under 1.5 earned runs tonight as well. So that's where I'll be at BetMGM. Schlittler under 1.5 earned runs. That's my bet for the day at BetMGM. Let's recap our 3 favorite moments of the show. Let's get to our 3 stars of the day.
3.
For Tarek Skubal, I think part of the draw there is they feel like elite starting pitching is what wins in the postseason, especially when hitting an overall offense is just down across the board. Major League Baseball, if you're the Dodgers and you don't get Tarek Skubal, well, you're going to probably have to face Tarek Skubal.
Doug McCain of the new 97.1 The Fan in L.A., he's on every afternoon. D-Mac and Ryder from 2 to 6 Pacific out there on 97.1 The Fan. It's the perfect opportunity if Skubal's willing to be a rental and doesn't have to work out some sort of extension before a deal gets done at the deadline. Go to L.A., help them win another one. God, it's just disgusting. The embarrassment of riches they have in the rotation, and they could still be there at the table trying to deal for Tarek Skubal with the trade deadline just a little more than a month away. Our number 2 star?
2.
Darius Acuff could be the best player in this draft. He really could. Darius is, I love him. He had an incredible year. He's Dame Lillard reincarnated. He wears the same chip on his shoulder out of Detroit that a kid from Oakland like Dame Lillard had coming into the league. So tremendous. I love him.
I love him too. Fran Fraschilla of ESPN talking about Darius Acuff Jr. I wanted to see him slide just a little bit farther to end up in a better situation. As it is, he's in Sacramento. I don't know. Work out the kinks with the Kings for a couple of years, then get dealt somewhere else where you'll actually be competitive. Sorry, Sacramento. I apologize. I can't wait to see what Darius Acuff Jr. does at the NBA level. Finally, our number one star of the day.
One.
I don't really like it because I don't really like LaMelo as a player. I mean, he's just unserious to me. You know, for me, like knowing how much Minnesota loves Naz Reid and how much of a fan favorite he is up there, like to have to send him out, bring back LaMelo Ball, like my guess is this is not a popular move at all in Minnesota.
Yeah, I can't imagine T-Wolves fans are necessarily enthralled at dealing Naz Reid either. That was John Martin from the Field of 68 at 92.9 ESPN in Memphis. We were talking to him just literally minutes after the LaMelo Ball deal to Minnesota went down. He doesn't sound like a big fan of it. I'll be honest, I'm not immediately knee-jerk reaction, first blush, a big fan of it either. Not for Minnesota anyway. I think for Charlotte, it's a good deal. I know all those picks are coming later down the road, but I mean, Naz Reid, I think, helps immediately for Charlotte, and you get out from underneath whatever nonsense exists with LaMelo. For what it's worth, I saw this posted from someone on social media about 2 hours ago, right after the trade. They said there are still multiple starting power forwards available for the T-Wolves in free agency if they want to address the Naz Reid departure, all at the mid-level exception range. John Collins, Kristaps Porzingis, Tobias Harris, Rui Hachimura, Jonathan Kuminga. If you're the Minnesota Timberwolves and you believe that one of those guys and LaMelo Ball are better for your team than Naz Reid, I got my questions. Hey, and that's not even getting to the part where LaMelo Ball, and Anthony Edwards have to decide who's going to get the last shot. Like I said, it either ends in a trip to the conference finals or a fist fight. One or the other. I'll be back in for Nick again tomorrow. Thanks to Kenny. Thanks to Tyler. Thanks to Bill. Thanks to Mike for keeping everything on the rails as much as we could. Black and Abdallah coming up next right here on Westwood One Sports.